Can I move this? Can I move it? Stick it in like that? Is that all right? You can come and have a wee look at it maybe. Okay. Hello everyone. Good afternoon. So I think we'll just make a start if that's okay. So I'd like to welcome you all to Glasgow Science Centre, and hello to our online audience too. I'm Susie Mitchell from Glasgow City of Science and Innovation. Welcome to our home. Thank you for being with us for this very special edition of the Art of Possible, which runs in parallel, of course, with the inaugural Cycling World Championships in Glasgow and across Scotland. So Art of Possible, Beyond Bikes, Unlocking Scotland's Pedal-Based Transport Industry was brought to you today by Glasgow City of Science and Innovation with support from our Can Do event programme partners, Scottish Enterprise, Innovate UK, KTN and Glasgow City Council. So Art of Possible is a feeder event series for the Can Do Innovation Summit, which is a focal point for startup and SME business innovation in Scotland. So our next summit will land here in Glasgow Science Centre on the 7th of November 2023, and we're excited to open registrations, which is free, in a few weeks' time, and we'll expect about 600 to 800 live attendees at the summit. So the summit, as ever, will be a showcase of Scottish innovation across a range of sectors, from health tech, fashion and fintech, to advanced manufacturing and space technology. And this year, we'll delve deep into the industrial metaverse. And startups and SMEs can learn practically how to embed immersive tech and AI to transform business, no matter the sector, and how high-quality data adds to this partnership. We'll also be treated to several global tech futurists who are tracking where the world is going, and you can receive more information on the summit if you're signed up to the Can Do Innovation Event Programme newsletter and if you follow us on LinkedIn. So the Art of Possible meetups in the summit are, in simple terms, about inspiring and supporting greater tech adoption and collaborative innovation in business. And of course, tech alone is not enough. Businesses need to combine purpose with progressive leadership, the right business models, and enabling cultures to simply innovate better and to innovate more successful solutions for people, planet, and productivity. And we're always blown away at these events by the mix of people that come along. And I had a wee scan of the attendee list last night. I saw people from the worlds of cycling, science, design, transport and technology, as well as education, energy, investment, medicine, manufacturing and music, and much more. So really it's our belief that at the intersection of different disciplines is where great innovation can happen. So lots of scope, I think, for creative collaborations today. So a little bit of housekeeping. Apologies for those online, if you can just bear with us before I introduce you to our chairs. So the toilets are just located outside in the corridor there, just on the other side of the corridor. There's no scheduled alarm for today, so if you hear the alarm, just follow our staff and their instructions and leave using the fire exit within the Tower Base foyer and congregate at the front of the Science Centre just next to the river. As well as streaming today's session, we'll share it after the event online at candooinnovation.scot, on that website and on social media channels. If you don't want to appear in any photos or filming, just let me or any of the Art of Possible staff know and we'll remove you from any pictures. Car parking tickets, if you have brought a car, can be validated by staff. So the format for today will be a short introduction from our chair and a talk from each of our speakers, followed by a moderated discussion before the chair opens up to the floor. So for those of you online, please ask any questions of our panellists as we go in the chat function, and the questions will be relayed to the chair when we come to the audience Q&A. And we've already received some great questions from you all when you registered, so thanks for those. We might not get through all of them, and apologies in advance if that's the case, but we'll try to select some questions and, to shape our discussions and encourage you to ask further questions in our Q&A session later. So it's my absolute pleasure to hand over to your chair, Alex Seaman, who is the chair of the Bike Association. So following a career As a logistics officer in the Royal Navy, Alec gained an MSc in Risk, Disaster and Resilience at the University College London. In 2020, he joined the Bicycle Association, and leading on sustainability there, he would author a research paper examining sustainability in the cycling industry. Alec represents the Bicycle Association at a European level, and he produces and hosts the Bicycle Association's podcast and webinar series, which examines sustainability, reshoring, new and disruptive business models, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thanks, Alex, for being here, and I'll just pass over to you to introduce our amazing panel and to kick off. Cheers.
Thank you. Well, it's absolutely amazing to be here in Glasgow discussing innovation in the cycling industry as the world watches Scotland host the World Championships. Whether you're here in person or whether you're joining us online, this session is for you. So please participate, ask questions, and there'll be polls coming up later. But it just stands to say a very warm welcome to you all. I suspect some of you are wondering why somebody with a background in disaster risk and resilience and sustainability is introducing a panel that's going to be discussing innovation. This talk 3 years ago, at the beginning of 2020, would probably have been very different. Innovation may well have been limited to product development, and marginal gains was still a term that was being thrown around the industry. The cycling industry had a very well-established way of doing business, and it was a model based entirely upon the work of a person by the name of Malcolm McLean. Does anybody know who Malcolm McLean is? Just out of curiosity. There's an open question. No. Well, Malcolm McLean was an advocate in the strongest possible terms of in-the-box thinking. His ideas went on, though, to revolutionize trade and transportation. In short, Malcolm McLean was the inventor of a container. And his first container vessel, launched back in 1956, could carry just 58 of these special boxes. But these containers went on to speed up transportation. They were truly intermodal. They were the first time that we were able to move goods quickly and conveniently from a truck to a train to a ship and back again. And as he did that, he reduced the requirement for manpower, he reduced waste of spoiled products, and almost overnight, transportation costs plummeted. It was an absolutely incredible global innovation. In fact, transportation went on to become so cheap, it made commercial sense to start designing your product on one side of the planet, to build it all the way around on the other side, and then sell it everywhere in between. And with that success, the size of the vessels carrying them grew as well. Today, most will carry around about 4,500 containers, but the really big ones will carry over 24,000. And the economic benefits of that scale have been absolutely huge. When you add just enough just-in-time philosophy as well, you have the crux of what has powered the global economic model for the last 50 years. Nothing has challenged it. Whether that's been wars, natural disasters, or changes of regime, it has been the absolute undisputed system in that time. In short, that simple box almost made all further innovation null and void. And then in 2020, we ran headlong into a global pandemic. A global container shortage came shortly after. There was huge supply chain disruption. There was war in Europe. That led to an energy crisis. There was a cost of living crisis. And when you didn't think anything could get any worse, 20,000 containers got stuck in Suez. Some of you may well have had goods on there. Because as this economic model had grown and had gone from strength to strength, the risk in the system had built up and built up. Businesses and even entire countries shipped their manufacturing and product development overseas, and we steadily reduced our own resilience. Wasn't any of that got to do with innovation in the cycling industry today? Had you stood up and said reshoring on this platform 3 or 4 years ago, most people would have laughed. They'd have said there's absolutely no way that you can compete with the main Asian manufacturers. If you had suggested that you put a global pandemic on your risk register that forecast the possibility that industry would close for a year and people would be restricted to their homes, most people would have thought that you were mad. Had you then gone on to say that you should stockpile your own critical raw materials so that you can ensure that you can make your goods, people would have thought that you were some Armageddon-obsessed prepper. Here today, everybody is having those discussions. The economic certainties of build over there and sell everywhere else have been challenged, and all of that has led to a great degree of uncertainty for the cycling industry. But that uncertainty is the ideal opportunity for future innovation to flourish. Old ideas are being tested all over again, but in new conditions. Brand new ideas have for the first time got the chance to root and become successful. And of course, new customers are not only being identified, but whole new ways of understanding their needs and how to reach them are being developed. And these innovations aren't just performance-focused. They have the potential to provide the really big wins the cycling industry needs in terms of sustainability and in terms of diversity. These new ways of working can reduce the impact that our industry has on the environment, can increase the opportunities for reuse, reduce waste in manufacturing, and have the potential to take the cycling industry to net zero. And this whole time, the cycling industry is now looking to include more people than ever before, to break down barriers, find innovative ways to get people to move around by pedal power. We're going to hear from 4 absolutely incredible panelists from across the industry who are each innovating. They've gone against conventions, they've identified new opportunities, and they'll demonstrate how we're no longer talking about innovation with a small I, but fundamental changes to how we think, how we work, and how we serve. In short, they're going to be talking about innovation writ large. So let me introduce our panelists. Immediately next to me is Alex Feakin, the CEO of FINRA. Alex took FINRA from her kitchen table to an award-winning e-commerce business that offers premium outdoor lifestyle clothing. Alex came to the cycling industry from fashion and textiles and had designed and developed knitwear for markets across the world, and stepped across having identified a niche in the market that was being particularly poorly served. Next to Alex is Ian Byrne, the CEO of Root Assembly. Ian has a lifetime of experience in cycling, bike manufacture and assembly, and is a passionate advocate for innovative ways of making. Ian believes that Scotland can be a hub not just for assembly, but for manufacture as well, and has built a team to deliver the best products possible to the market. Next is MJ Somerville. MJ is the UK maker of XYZ Cargo, but MJ started off in theatre before entering the cycling industry 15 years ago, and has experience spanning reuse, collaboration, disruptive design, development, and manufacture. And finally, David Hemming, the MD of Free Flow Technologies. David was a Team G mountain biker before moving into the industry and has covered sales, marketing, business development for the likes of Cannondale, Rafa, and Team Sky. He's now developing a mid-drive e-bike motor design assembly here in Scotland. We've got a range of experiences across the whole of the cycling industry. Alex, can I invite you up to take the stage first? Thank you.
Hi everyone, and hello to our online audience as well. It's great to be here today and to be able to contribute to the conversation around Scotland's pedal-based transport. I'm Alex Feakin. I'm the founder and CEO of FINRA. FINRA is a pioneering premium outdoor lifestyle clothing brand for women. We're based in Innerleithen in the Tweed Valley. We're a digital-first business. We sell 90% of our sales come through our e-commerce own brand website, And we also have a bricks and mortar shop, which is in the high street of Innerleithen, where you can come in and browse and buy the products, as well as have a coffee, a slice of cake, and take part in a yoga or Pilates session if you would like to. FINDRA exists to empower more people to get outdoors. We do that through delivery of designing stylish, versatile and sustainable outdoor clothing. And we also build at the same time an engaged, inspiring and motivational community around the brand. Back in 2011, I got hooked on mountain biking, and I still am. And at the time decided that I would go along to my local trail centre to buy some decent kit for my newfound hobby. When I went to the shop, the trail centre shop, and I stood there looking at all of the clothing that was on display, I very quickly realised that 90% of what was on offer was for men, and 10% that was on offer for women suffered from what we refer to in the industry as the shrink it and pink it approach, which is when a man's product is taken, it's reduced in size, and a pink flower or go faster stripe is added, and that's supposed to appeal to women. Now, I went out cycling most weekends with an amazing bunch of females. They were strong, inspirational, motivational, and encouraging. And for me, I just felt that the products that were being offered were really letting those women down. And so it was in that moment, in that trail centre shop, that I had my kind of light bulb moment and decided that I wanted to do something better. Now, I didn't just come at that from little experience. I had 20 plus years of experience behind me at that point as a fashion designer. I was based in Scotland. I worked in the Scottish fashion and textile industry, but I travelled internationally and designed and product developed luxury cashmere knitwear for a number of leading global brands. Brands like Chanel, Calvin Klein, Escada, Brooks Brothers, and many more. So I had a good idea about the type of product that I wanted to design. Once I got the idea for the business, I found that I was combining two of my great passions, which was great design, and my love of the outdoors. When I started to think about the type of products that I wanted to design, the first thing I'd done was to observe what people were already wearing. And there was a couple of things that stood out to me. The first thing was that most people wore synthetic products. Products that, whilst might be durable, they certainly weren't particularly functional. They were basically not going to keep you warm or cool you down, and they also weren't going to be very good for the environment. I also noticed that when we all turned up for our bike ride, we would all turn up with really bulky layers on. And as we started to cycle, we would start to warm up, our bodies would get warmer, and we were taking our clothing and our layers of clothing and putting it into a rucksack. So we were basically carrying a lot of bulk around. So what I felt I wanted to do was to come up with a system that was lightweight layers that you could layer up and down depending on the weather, your activity and your location. Layers that would easily pack down small and fit into a rucksack or a pannier. I also wanted to use really innovative raw materials, things like merino wool, fibres that were recycled, and I wanted to take these innovative materials and I wanted to put them into stylish designs that were simply detailed and very understated in terms of branding. I wanted women to feel good and to look good, and I wanted them to feel really comfortable in the products. I also wanted to design products that were versatile, that reduced your wardrobe, and that when you went to the cafe or the pub afterwards, you felt good in what you were wearing, because the best part about cycling is the coffee and cake stop after, and nobody wants to turn up looking, as my mum would say, like a sack of tatties. So the design and the way that the product looked, as well as the functionality, was essential. At that time, sustainability wasn't the buzzword that it is today, and introducing a range of products that used merino wool was really quite different at that point. It felt a little bit like we were sticking our head above the parapet, and the fact that they looked quite different from everything else that was out there made the transition from being a small unknown brand and starting to grow quite challenging. And it was a real unexpected challenge for me, because I guess that immersed in the industry, I thought everyone knew the benefits of those fabrics and fibres, but they didn't. So we had to start off educating customers and consumers to the many benefits of these fibres. Throughout my journey with Findra, I've had a lot of support over the years, from friends, family, to various organisations. The journey has been a really interesting one. It's been a real adventure with many ups and downs. Too many to talk about in 5 minutes, but I would love to be able to tell you all more. We have a stand with our products. I would love you to come along and have a look. Myself and my colleagues are there, and you can ask us a little bit more about our products, our vision for our business, and our story. But thanks for the opportunity to come and share Findra and my journey. Thank you.
Sorry, I've got to find this on my phone because I wrote it about 15 minutes ago. Where are we going? Okay, so firstly, it's a pleasure to be here. Such a great panel and all you guys in the room. Root Assembly is basically a company we set up nearly 2 years ago now, and what we do is we offer third-party services to the cycle industry. The aim of that is to create local economic value in Scotland through establishing a forward-thinking and circular-minded manufacturing supply chain. So what does that look like and why? Bike assembly, additive frame production, and circularity. Basically looks like these 3 steps. The technical aspects are quite boring, so the reason I've got poor delivery here is because Alec told me I was quite boring talking about it, so I rewrote this whole thing. Right, on the other hand, the why is quite interesting. The UK and the wider cycling industry are in a fairly unique position. A lot of people have touched on it already. Supply chain issues, cash flow issues, overstock, cost of living crisis, climate emergency. All these create somewhat of a perfect storm for the industry, with some of the powerhouses struggling to exist, really. Agility and being small has proved somewhat of an asset for quite a few people. At the same time, there's a real government push and industry body push to get people riding, and that's outside of the sport of cycling. It's becoming mobility. Essentially, green shoring, onshoring, whatever you want to call it at this point, allows us to deal with 90% of these issues, be agile, and we can adopt a creative process to what is not working, and we can adopt what is working. So what can we do right now? Well, we can assemble onshore. That's a pretty basic process, and there's financial and ecological benefits to doing that. What we can't do, but we can do very soon, is additive manufacturing frame production. You've seen a lot of this in the news. You've seen the 2 bikes on the track. Both of them are additive manufacturing bikes, but they're probably costing about 20 grand a piece. There's literally seconds in it. But what we're talking about here is actual commercialization of it. Can we get a frame down to be competitive with Asia and produce it like this? Well, the answer is yes. It's just difficult. What are the real benefits of this, though? Well, basically, we can create a titanium bike in unique shapes without any molding. We can do rapid prototyping in less than 24 hours. The process has a 99.99 densification. So essentially, there's very little welding mistakes, anything like that. We can explore dual materials, so you can mix titanium with different alloys to find out what's going to happen. We can do 6-axis printing to increase the strength. We can reduce wall sizes. We can produce with basically little to no MOQ, because we're selling time, we're not really selling product. That gives us a just-in-time manufacturing process. Basically, we can cut the labor costs down, which is what we're saving when we go to Asia. It's a 24-hour facility. It costs roughly, I'd say, £80 per kilo to print, rather than it being a frame price. There's limitations and compromises, the speed being one of them. But basically, this, when you look at it holistically, isn't really an issue. The whole process, when you take in shipping, molding, prototyping, averages out to we produce about the same number of frames as you would get in a container. Adding on to that, we can do things like drop shipping for your customers, just in time. You don't have to sink 30% of your cash flow into waiting 9 months for your bikes to arrive. You can be more agile, focus on what's important. So what's after that for us? Basically, We're in a very unique position in the UK where we can design an industry going forward for the future. We can design it basically from the scratch. We have nothing, we don't have it. So what we want to do is have conversations. How I look at route assembly is something MJ is probably going to talk about here, is a shared space. If we cut down on our overheads and route is a shared space for many people, we can all act much faster, be more agile, we can be far more competitive, we can innovate much better. After COVID, things have definitely changed, and I've noticed a lot of people need that and don't have it. What we want to do is have conversations with the industry and much wider than the industry and see what we can do. We can build a unique environment for the industry and Scotland. It's very much a small town situation where everybody knows everybody and everybody is highly supportive. So I think with a little push and a lot of commitment, we can create a unique opportunity for Scotland to be a global player on the cycling stage, but it will take a while. I think that's it.
I was stressing about that. Hiya, my name is MJ Somerville, and I'm the UK producer for XYZ Cargo. XYZ Cargo is part of the XYZ Space Frames and Space Plates project. It was developed in 2011 by an urban art collective called N55, which is based in Copenhagen. They had funding to look at the intersection between functional art and everyday life. So as part of XYZ Cargo, as part of the XYZ Space Frames project, we also have projects based in XYZ Space Plates, which include bothies, placemaking disruptors, like our Parks Swarm project, and even we do some walking houses. Our focus is based on local production, so I joined XYZ in 2022 as the UK local producer. We work in the Fab Lab ethos of data in and data out IOS, which means that we share data and design, but we all build and fabricate locally. Our ethos is we want to change the way we move things, the way we produce things, share and distribute in a socially just and environmental way. All of our designs are based in open source, which I'll talk about later, and we use simple tools and materials that are available anywhere in the world. This is one of our products, which is the XYZ Cargo Trike. It can be in this form, or do you need a trikeshaw? Or do you need a nursery school bike? Or do you need a pizza bike for food and food carts? Or for some, do you want to work from home on your bike? This one's great. It even has a coffee maker in it and some solar panels to run your computer. All of these have a load capacity of 150 kilograms plus rider. We also got some funding, so they are CE approved. We have more models that you can choose, and this is where the open source aspect comes in, is that we use the users to understand that collaborative process of what they want. And then we design what they want, and then we can then use it for another user. So we have a library bike for a library in Copenhagen, but I can build that for a community bookseller here. Or one of my favorites is actually the greenhouse bike, because that can go around. Or we do have a picture there of the Park Swarm, which means that a bike becomes a parking lot, and then it's a placemaking tool. All of them are completely modular. We then, I've gone through that, sorry. There we go. Moving on, so XYZ Cargo is not trademarked and it's not patented IP. It sits under Creative Commons licensing, and there's many types of different Creative Commons licensing. You'll see it a lot in, who here likes Thingiverse? Thingiverse is fabulous. Scottish Enterprises use it, and Business Gateway uses it for some of their business modeling tools. So we sit in Creative Commons 4.0 BYNCSA, which basically means that anyone can build it. You cannot build it for commercial gain, though, and you can remix it. The only thing you need to do is attribute it to XYZ Cargo. We are also part of the Fab Lab network, so we have the Fab Lab logo there, and then we have Hamburg, which is becoming a Fab City, which means that they want to see most of the products that are needed in the city of Hamburg to be all fabricated within Hamburg using the data iOS, data in, data out systems. We also are part of OpenNext, which is a EU project looking at open source Creative Commons and commercialization of open source products. There's OpenDesk here in the UK. They're a good open source product designer. Ultimaker, the 3D printer, is also an open source product. And then you can find our add-on project as part of Wikifactory, which means you can go on there, you can build an add-on, so that was that pizza bike or that was that nursery bike, or a DJ bike, and then you can create it yourself, and that sits under another Creative Commons license, meaning that you can have commercial gain for that project. And then just lastly, we're looking at an example of what this does when, especially Alec is talking about this disaster relief. And we're not, and I think the pandemic showed we're actually not too far off that. It takes one thing to happen for that to disintegrate. And I think in this collective trauma we're dealing with in disassociation with the pandemic, we're kind of pushing that aside, but I think that's a very dangerous tool to do. So Till, one of the founding collaborators of XYZ Cargo, went out to Ukraine this year and collaborated with Toolcar, mobile makerspace, and Ecomisto, which is kind of your bike reuse third sector group over there. They went out and built with them 3 cargo bikes to help rebuild housing, for food relief, and for first aid relief. The thing is, these bikes have now been built by the community. They're completely circular and repairable. We use very simple 25 by 25 by 2 alloy 60-61 tubing. If part of that breaks and they only have a steel tube, use a steel tube, drill some holes, bolt it back on. You can even use wood in an emergency. And you can see in the middle we have the Czechoslovakian hedgehog. And that hedgehog is the basis of an XYZ joint. So we have all the accesses supporting one corner with flexibility, but just as strong as a weld. And that is the basis of XYZ Cargo. I also work in a shared makerspace, similar to Toolcar, which means that we have greater collaboration, diversity, and innovation, because we're really stretching our ideas that we're looking at and not chasing. Later, I might be talking about a great book called Stretching, written by Scott Schonenstein, which is talking about that process of how do you use your resources? We actually have enough resources. It's just how we're using them is what makes it different. I will also be at the exhibition. We do have a bike here to look at and give a tootle around on. And thank you for your time. I look forward to chatting.
Okay. Where are we? Where's the up-down buttons? I can't quite see them. There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm David Hemming, the Managing Director of Free Flow Technologies, a innovative mid-drive motor company based in East Kilbride. And what I wanted to just bring to light today is that, firstly, I've worked with Alex in the past on projects. I'm currently working with Ian on a project, so thank you for the picture with our motor bracket in there. I did take note to that. And we'll be working with MJ in the future in the coming months on a project with XY Cargo. So Free Flow Technologies was a company that was established a little over 11 years ago. We've taken our time to come to market because we want to be a disruptive innovator in the bicycle industry. We make an e-bike motor for the global bicycle sector. So whether you're a handmade bike frame right the way through to a global blue chip, we've got a system that would work in one of your frames. I just can't quite see the up and down buttons. Thank you for the... Oh. Who's queuing there? There we go. Next one, please. There we go. And next one. Sorry. I didn't bring my glasses, so I can't see the keyboard. Thank you. So here's our motor actually installed into a bicycle. What we've looked at is the actual industry itself is in a bit of a kind of hypocritical state. We say we're a sustainable green tech industry, yet the market and our competitors are actually not very sustainable. We're looking at what does the end consumer need? They need a product that has a shelf life to it. When a simple component wears out on one of our competitors' systems, they throw this whole unit away and replace it with a new one. It's just not sustainable. We talk about resources that we've talked about earlier. We have to have that right to repair. So something that we've put together is numbers then from an e-bike motor. Yes, we do the same numbers as everybody else out there, but what we've looked at is connecting the bicycle industry holistically, from product manager through to end consumer. The product manager is now looking at how quick and easy it is to design a frame, and we have an example of that here in the expo today. How quick and easy it is to design a frame around the motor. How quick it is to then assemble that bike with the motor in it, less than 10 minutes. We call it a 3-to-1. You can put 3 transmissions, batteries, and wires into a frame than you can compared to one of our competitors. Then when it gets to the bike shop, this is really where the heel comes to a complete stop. The brakes go on because the bike shops are panicking. They've got this technical product coming through their stores right now. It's got electronics in it. They don't understand it. And when it goes wrong, it has to come off and go back to a service center, and it could be weeks off your bike. I mean, imagine driving a car, and I know we're all driving cars too much, but imagine taking your car in for a service, and they say to you, I'm sorry, we've got to send your engine back to Germany or Italy, wherever it comes from. You'd think that was insane. We want bike shops to be able to service these systems in the shops. When we talk about service from the very get-go, is that it builds confidence with the consumers, builds confidence with the bike brands and the bike shops, connecting all of them to say, we've got something that can be sold, serviced, and repaired in our facilities. We want to be same-day service on that side of things. Secondary to the design of implementing it in serviceability, if I could grab the next slide, please, thank you, is how the overall bike looks. A couple of the key things that we've designed into the bike is the brand has to be able to design a bike that doesn't look like a tractor. If it looks big and bulky, it is big and bulky. It is uncomfortable to ride. It is heavy to lift up the stairs of the apartment block you live in. So the idea is this particular design means that the system disappears within the design of the frame of the bike. The battery is very slender and disappears within the frame, and you end up with a bike like this that looks like a normal bike. Secondary to that is we're all governed by a cutoff speed of just shy of 16 miles an hour. Once it goes past that 16 miles an hour, you have to drive an engine and a gearbox that's not actually turning on. So we've created a system that the only resistance you have when pedaling are the pedal bearings and the bottom bracket bearings. So it rides like a normal bike. Overall, what we've got then is a system that has a shelf life. It has a second-hand life. It has a circular economy because it can be serviced long-term down the road. We're looking at next-generation systems for brands to invest in tooling into frames that they can continue with the frame design but have the latest transmission system. Our competitors go, here's our latest system, but it doesn't footprint into any of the current frames you've got. You've got to spend the tooling to bring that up. So collectively as a team, we've got something that is really going to be a game changer in the bicycle industry. We've got lots of brands, roughly about 160 brands interested in this at the moment. We have 30 brands that are developing bikes, and so we're looking to really scale our business. We have a strong business plan over the next couple of years to increase our staff count here in East Kilbride. We assemble systems here in Scotland for the UK market and for the European side of things. Then we will look at point of shipping to brands that do not assemble their bikes in their own territories. So we really are kind of looking to scale all the way through. But if we look at the overall kind of sector of mobility at this stage, we are a small industry. But we're not that small because the automotive sector, and I'm not sure if there's anybody here from the automotive sector today, but the automotive sector is looking at our industry and buying companies in this sector. To give you a stat that I'll close with and I'll sit back down is One particular German car brand spends 1.5 billion euros developing one model of car, and that car sells for £70,000. It's an electric car, and it's a global business, and it's logical, it makes a lot of money. But if I take the battery from that car, that battery will make 200 e-bikes. Now, an electric car doesn't move through Glasgow any quicker because there's still traffic. So if we take that car off the road and put 200 e-bikes on there, as a company, I'm now not making £70,000 from the sale of that car. I'm making somewhere between £400,000 and £500,000 in sales. So that's why the automotive sector is waking up to this space. So e-mobility is definitely on the growth side of things from the bicycle industry, but it's also being looked at by the automotive sector. And with that, I'll sit back down and we'll continue the discussion.
Okay, that's all of our introductions now done. You know a little bit about us, but we know very little about you. So what I was going to do is start here and work all... No, I'm joking, I'm not going to do that. Craig, could you just put up the poll? We've got some polls. There's a QR code there. We're using Slido, and this is real time. So if you are watching online, you should be able to see that QR code as well. Just if everybody can take a moment to scan that with your phone. We want to just find out a little bit about you and what you're thinking about. At this first instance, what do you think about when you hear the word innovation? And then we'll just go through another couple of questions. So let's... Okay. Ooh, went up, went down. Can we see whether we've got people online responding? Just curious, that was all. Okay. We'll just give it a few more seconds. Right, okay. So it's mainly new ways of working or doing things, new products and refinements to existing products, but not new audiences or ways of reaching new audiences with existing products. But we've got a few who are all of the above. A few more seconds, Craig, and then we'll jump straight to the next one. We'll keep this moving quickly. Yeah, do you want to jump to the next one, Craig, please? Okay, what do you think needs to happen to encourage innovation here in Scotland and across the UK? Wow, okay. Seems to have stabilised it. Right, increasing investment in manufacturing. That sounds pretty good for you there, Ian. And/or capacity there as well. Bring more people together in innovation hubs like this and then increase funding. Okay, that looks pretty steady. And then the final one, please, Craig. Okay, where do you all sit within the industry at the moment? Bringing something entirely new to the industry seems to be the main one there. Okay. Okay, so this room is full of people who are really bringing new things to the market. Right, okay. Thank you, Craig. Let's get started with some questions. David, would you mind just pulling it? Yeah. Okay. Now, I've had the good fortune of being able to speak to everybody here for hours. I mean, maybe less their good fortune. And just to be clear, I wasn't saying that additive manufacture was boring, but I was expecting it to be when we first started talking, so I was pleasantly surprised. We've had a lot of time to talk, and I'm going to start with MJ and David because you've both demonstrated, you've both shown your product, you've gone through it, you've talked about serviceability, you've talked about repairability, the use of commonly available parts, circularity, and these are the things that you've mentioned. Are these really innovations? Are they simply going back to a way that we used to do business, or is there something different to how we're doing it now to how it was done previously? And MJ, if I maybe start with you, is that?
I think it's a bit of a mix. I think things were definitely made to last, but they were also, again, made locally at that time. Let's take Sturmey Archer as a great example of that. Like, to me, it's aliens made Sturmey Archer because it's so brilliant and no computers were used to make it. But they were made to last in materials, and it was a perfect example of repairability. Once it was taken over by Sunray, suddenly that repairability aspect of that project disintegrated as it went global. So I think the local is a similarity to that. And I think things were just made to last when we started into a bit more of a consumer culture, and that chasing factor of getting the new toaster oven or vacuum or whatever. That same example of Sturmey Archer for our industry became more consumable. And I think the difference for the future now is this thing called the internet. And that's how data is moving back and forth. And instead of sending your prints through mail to maybe a designer in the States, that is now instantaneous. So I think the ability to manufacture in different places is significantly faster.
Yeah, I mean, for us at FreeFlow, a couple of the key things is we talk about this reshoring, and I will stand my ground, it's local sourcing. The work we're doing with SE to create a directory of, you can say local sourcing or reshoring, but until you truly know what's here, you can't change your direction. So it's about creating that directory of saying, well, I need electronics manufacturers, I need machine shops, I need casting facilities to be able to make these components. So yeah, we're looking on our doorstep to try and change that, to be able to create something that does truly create a circular economy, that we can actually bring stuff back to the home here, because I asked my team from a procurement level to look at every aspect and touch point, whether we ship something in a container, the time, the cost. Generally when we're doing something from a product development side of things, I get told, and I laugh and joke with my team, and most of my team are here today, I say, oh, is it 2 weeks? It's always going to be 2 weeks. If it's not 2 weeks, it's 3 months. Why does it have to be 3 months? Which is why working with people like Ian, it's same day, next day. We can rapidly prototype stuff and do things in a different way. But then handing it back to the market itself and allowing them to be part of this, because we are creating more and more technical product, but the more technical product it becomes doesn't mean it's an FMCG product. It's not fast-moving consumer goods. A bike is not that. We look at sense of ownership of around 3 years before someone replaces something. And in many ways, the pandemic has fueled for so many people to get back to the basics of almost being a kid. They forgot what it was like to ride a bike, and they rediscovered it, which is why sales was so big through the pandemic. It was one of our only outsources to go and get exercise every day. And that has continued. So what we do need to do is build on that mobility, but make sure we build product that does have a shelf life and does give the people the right experience on that front as well.
Mm-hmm. You've talked about how long innovation takes. You mentioned it very briefly. How long does it take to bring a new product to the market? What are the hurdles along the way?
And there's a lot of trial and error, because you can 3D model something and it looks fantastic and works on the computer screen, but then in reality, once you get a prototype there, it's not manufacturable, on a large volume scale. You can create something that is very unique and it can be made, but it's cost prohibitive. And so for us, like I said, we've been around 11 years and we're only just coming to market. Could we have been in the market a few years ago with a Me Too product? Absolutely, but we'd just be banging the same drum that everyone else is doing. So, we have made some major changes on our system design from 2018, and we've had a global pandemic in the middle of that. So we've had 2 years of downtime. So testament to my team is that they've done an outstanding job in a 2-year window, really, to create a product that we're now ready to productionize, and we're now shipping to brands. And we're now starting to put our hand above the crowd to say, look, you don't all have to do the same. So yeah, it's a long road, it's a long process, but every step that you get through with the product, the next step should be easier because of what you've learned.
And so one of the things is that when you have a panel like this and people are up talking about the development of their products, it can seem that it's a relatively certain journey. The outcome was almost assured. Alex, you've talked about unexpected hurdles. Is that something you can build upon in that process for us?
Yeah, so I suppose the big challenge that I hadn't anticipated was that people had a real issue around a natural fibre. A lot, particularly in the bike clothing industry, a lot of products were predominantly using synthetic fibres. And I knew that a natural fibre felt like a really natural move. That was the right thing to use as a raw material for my designs, because the benefits of wearing that fibre in the outdoors were far outweighed anything that a synthetic fabric could do. But also they were so much better for such a better fibre for the environment. So it just felt like it was the natural way forward. But I found a lot of people sort of saying, no, it's I don't want to kind of go down that road, I want to kind of stick with what's out there. And I found that really surprising. And so what you've got to do then is educate people in the benefits of what you're providing. And as I said when I spoke earlier, sustainability wasn't talked about the way it's talked about now. So you didn't even use that word then, although that was what we were doing. We were being sustainable, we were thinking sustainably, but it just wasn't part of the conversation, which I think is really interesting given that it's only 8 years ago.
Was there an element of that hurdle had a double whammy, that you were speaking to about a new product to largely a new audience? Or do you think that hurdle would have existed regardless?
Well, I think you're coming to market as a new brand, so you are, you've got to overcome the hurdle of not existing before and then being there. So there is a bit of a double whammy. You're coming to market with a new, quite innovative product that is not like anything else that's out there. So that's the first thing. But also then educating people in why you've done what you've done. So yeah, challenges that weren't expected.
Yeah. And David has just mentioned the role of 3D printing or additive manufacture in speeding up the process. Is there a trade-off for that innovation time and cost? Ian, what do people need to be thinking about when they're prototyping here in the UK?
I guess so. Like 3D printing has definite restrictions and definite pitfalls. A lot of people will use a really slow process that's really expensive. If you want to do it quickly, you've got to use a combined process, so powder-based and wire-based. That'll give you a product that you can produce. So I think what you can do sometimes with innovation is use a really slow process that doesn't really give you an actual product that you can produce at the end. Then you've got to go find a different process. So like David said, you might get something that looks fantastic, but it's not producible. So I think using it, you have to be aware of the limitations and incorporate them into the design process to get to a production stage. So for designers, I guess that just comes down to actually knowing the new process, and it moves incredibly quickly. Like what we do now wasn't possible 6 to 9 months ago. You know what I mean? It's an industry that is moving so quickly. Keeping up with it is actually quite hard.
So even if somebody has already looked at additive manufacturing in the last couple of years, it hasn't worked for them at the time, don't dismiss it, keep coming back to it, is what you're saying.
There's more failure stories than success, but that's only because the amount of time maybe it takes to innovate, and if you don't adopt what's happening, you might not be using the most up-to-date process. A good example is Superstrata recently, but I would say there's 2 reasons that didn't work. One, because they didn't stick to bike fundamentals in terms of the actual design, but the other is they used a process that was planar printing. They're going across and across, so you get weak points. Whereas now things can be mounted on robots, and 6-axis printing, you can print in directionally, you can increase the strength. There's a whole heap of things you can do to actually produce frames that work, whereas a lot of the time people just used what was off the shelf.
Yeah.
So,
and everything at the moment has been about prototyping. David has mentioned that he's used it for prototyping, not quite yet at manufacturing at scale. Is that always going to be the case? Is this a prototype-only development process?
No.
And if it isn't, how soon do you see us moving to that point?
no, I would say within a year we could go to actual production. The truth is we just need to design slightly different and think about it in a different way. You're not buying a container of bikes that you're waiting 6 months for. You're buying time. You might be waiting 2 months or 3 months, but if you're doing it based on a booking service, say if we've got 5 clients who order bikes, They order them as they need them, 5s, 10s, 1s, 2s, doesn't really matter. We're selling time and we're booking up that. When the machine is full, we buy another machine, we increase the production speed. But if you were saying a bike every 9 hours, when you actually start breaking down your prototyping, all the processes afterwards, the shipping times, it actually levels out to being roughly the same production time using a process like this. So in terms of production capacity, it's not really that much different. And not only that, we can do titanium, steel, mixed alloys, we can experiment with it, and it's cost effective in comparison.
MJ, just changing the tack a little bit, you currently build XYZ Cargo in a shared space in Edinburgh. Why did you choose to do that, and what does it enable you to do?
Originally, it was, so I'm based at Edinburgh Open Workshop, which is a resident and pay-as-you-go makerspace in Edinburgh. I am a resident maker. I always wanted to work there. I don't work well in a silo. The advantages have been things that I expected and things I haven't expected. So there's reception, someone to get your packages. But there's also, I work with blacksmiths, robotics, screen printers, joiners, welders, jewelry makers. I have access to wood machines, metal machines, welding machines, CNC machines, and laser cutters. So not only do we have a collaborative process within, and a whole industrial textiles area as well. So we have everyone that has a bit of an expert in completely different fields, but we can bounce ideas off each other. Because I kind of waddled in and looked at the laser cutter and I was like, ooh, this looks fun. And now my covers are made on that laser cutter. I can make everything myself. I'm learning new skills constantly. But I think it's a collaborative nature of XYZ thrives in that environment. If I'm in an environment where I'm only on my own, the innovation would fail. I would get stuck in my own head of chasing other brands, and this way I'm just able to, I get to build Meccano for a living. Like, how great is that, right? That's literally my job, is Meccano, and to work with such great artists is fabulous, and I would prefer never to work another way.
Okay, so you prefer never to work another way, but do you foresee a time when that environment may not be suitable if you were to scale up, if your model was slightly different? Would you see that space would be suitable for a period and then you would have to transition out of it? Or do you think there's opportunity for that model to be employed?
I think there's an opportunity for that model to be employed. My only issue is storage. And that's it, like storage, of being able, because we do four-wheeler trucks, recumbent four-wheelers. They're not the smallest things in the world. They do stand upright, but they're still not small. So storage is an issue. But because I build handmade to order, I never have stock. I have a couple of trial bikes that I take off the wheels, stick them in the corner. But EOW is looking to grow. So I'm hoping to grow with it as they get a bigger space, and then we get more makers and more innovation running through it, is the hope. Because, artists like artists, no matter what we're making, we thrive off the other energies, I think.
Yeah. I hope David and Ian won't mind me saying this, but you both have, and you've both followed a fairly well-trodden path of coming into the cycling industry as cyclists moving on. So the question is not for you. Alex and MJ, you both came into the cycling industry from a completely different direction, and one that we're probably not quite so familiar with. MJ, theatrical background. Alex, you came from fashion and textiles. What has that meant for you in terms of how you approach not just running the business, but launching the project? What were the barriers? And where have you been able to find support to break the cycling industry specifically, break into it, sorry?
So I think for me, coming at it from the fashion and textile industry enabled me to approach the design of the product in quite a fresh way. I had, however many years experience behind me. I, wanted to combine stylish design. It's not fashion, it's not seasonal, it has more longevity. But I think just having that industry experience behind me in fashion meant that I just had a different approach to how the product would look. and also had a really strong understanding of brands because I'd worked for really high-end luxury brands. So I understood what it actually meant to build a brand and what goes with that. That made it interesting, and that made the approach to design interesting. I am a cyclist that goes out for leisure. I'm not a competitive cyclist. I'm not a overly technical downhill mountain biker or anything like that. I go out because I love being outdoors and I love to ride my bike. So when I started, there was a little part of me felt that I wasn't able to, whilst I had this experience in the industry from a design point of view, I didn't have the credentials, if you like, as a mountain biker or a cyclist sort of thing. It was just for leisure. And it took a bit of time for me to realise that that was actually a real positive, because the majority of people are not competitive mountain bike or road cyclists that are doing it for competitive reasons. The majority of people actually just like to get out on their bikes. And the approach that I took to design sort of worked really well with that more leisure lifestyle approach, which was great. You also asked about the support.
Yeah, please.
To tell you. So I had the idea for Findra, and I knew that I wanted to do something, and was quite sort of driven to do that. And it just so happened that a few months later, I got an email, along with probably lots of other people, from Scottish Enterprise, who at that point sent out an email to a group of people to say, do you have or do you know of anyone that has an idea for a business related to mountain biking? And if so, can you come along to an innovation clinic? And so I thought, I've got an idea. And so I went along to an innovation clinic meeting that they were holding in the Mountain Bike Centre of Scotland at Glentress. And there were 3 people there. One of them, who I think's in the room, Moira. She is there, yep.
Hiding right at the back, but will be
back.
available afterwards.
So I told Moira, Graham and Leonie my idea for designing clothing for women within the cycling sector, and they all thought it was a great idea. And basically then they helped me to really understand the marketplace that I was getting into, to get an idea of the size of the market, the industry. We went on some learning journeys out to Eurobike, so I got first-hand experience of seeing the industry, understanding what was going on, the scale of it. They also helped me. I spent about 18 months doing market research before I launched the brand and the business, and through Scottish Enterprise got access to Mintel reports, which enabled me to fully understand what the opportunity was. And that was all really, really, incredible information and support. And then when I did eventually come to market, the team were there to help me in so many ways. Prior to that, we also ran focus groups. They helped me get people together. There was just a huge amount of support. And even right down to when I had my first launch event, one of the team came along and helped, hand out flyers and give out drinks and bowls of crisps and things like that. So the support was phenomenal, and Moira, who's sitting over there, is still a massive supporter. And every now and then I'll get a little message of her on a hill somewhere getting blowing a gale around her, telling me, I effing love your stuff. So it's like, brilliant. And that came from that, one little meeting. So the support is out there, and that support was phenomenal for me.
MJ, coming to even though this is 15 years ago, but coming into the industry with a fresh perspective, what did that enable you to do?
I think so. My background's in theatre. I've been everything from a lighting designer to a director, primarily production management and stage management. But my degree is actually in theatre for social change. And that was my driver, that using, if there's any theatre geeks out there, some good Augusto Boal, Theatre of the Oppressed work, look it up. It is actually great for looking at any societal issue we're looking at. And that was my base when I was in Toronto, because I'm Canadian, and then I was moving to Scotland. And I had burned out
burned out a little too many times, hence why I'm now working for myself. But I burned out in that. And then I've always been a utility person on a bike. I get to A to B, and that's it. I tootle here, I tootle there. I tried to do a charity ride. I got really bored on my bike, but hung out with the mechanics all the time when we were at camp. And I love mechanical things, hence the mechano thing, and Lego, like as a kid. So the Theatre for Social Change, I realized, because if we look at the bicycle as a means of emancipation, that's been the arc of this machine since its inception. And I found it was a better tool to use than theatre, so I just took that information I had for theatre and switched it to the tool of bicycle, and spent about 16 years with at-risk youth and adults in reuse. And to see that person gain, it's not about the bike skills, it was their self-worth, it was their self-esteem, and it was their self-confidence. And that's what drove me into this, and just this simple machine that meant that I can wear trousers, or I get to vote, or I can move without, we still have societies where a female moving without a man is massive. So this machine has so much, and I think sometimes with sport, we lose the transport of that part of it. Support-wise, and why I originally sought out N55 was I'm short and sturdy. And they don't make cargo bikes for short and sturdy people. Tall people make tall bikes. And I visited them. I love the ethos that it came from art, and that's my background. It wasn't trying to come into the bike industry at all, actually. He's off making bothies right now. But they were like, yeah, we'll just change the design and we'll just make it shorter for you. And that idea of innovation made it accessible, which means that this bike can help anyone, and I can make it help anyone that needs whatever adaptation they need to it. So I think, because I know we've talked about the theatre a bit, and that stretching, that resourcefulness, and that theatre game where, I take this pen and for me it becomes a conductor's wand, or what does that become for you, Ian? That's not a pen. Fidget tool. And then Alex, what does that become for you? But it just makes that brain think of how can I use something differently? Example of that is my covers. I'm a pack rafter, again, another random sport. But the TPU fabric that's used on pack rafts, I've started to use on my covers because it's heat weldable, and I just use a little leather iron and make my covers. So, it's just that creative thinking has really helped.
If I've got a chance a little bit later, depending on how many questions we get from everybody here, I want to come back and talk about IP and data, because they're things that have been touched upon. But I'm going to finish with just one last question. David, it's something you've mentioned, we've talked about reshoring and greenshoring. We think about bringing manufacturing back to the UK, to Europe. Ian, is that what we want to be doing? Are we simply rebuilding capability that we have maybe lost, or are we replicating what other regions are doing, or is there something else?
I think it's something else entirely. I think we've got a really unique opportunity in the UK with Brexit, COVID, all the disruption. We've actually got a unique opportunity where we've got nothing. We've got very little resource in terms of an actual manufacturing base. So if we have conversations now, we can create something that is fit for 20, 30, 50 years. We can actually innovate, take things that don't work so well, create a new process, take things that do work well and use it. We can create everything around that if we have the right conversations. David touched on the car industry. There is so much to learn from it. And not only that, if we are honest, as the cycling industry is progressing, it's not a sports industry, it is a mobility industry. And the truth is, the car industry, like David said, see that and they're coming in, and they are far more efficient than we are. They know how to capitalize on that. They know what manufacturing processes work. So I think as an industry, we need to have much wider conversations and rebuild for the future. And not only that, I think if the UK does that, we stand a chance of actually being a global player, not just, our own little island here. And even at that, even if we just copy the growth of France, Germany, anything like that, even if it is just for the UK, there's enough business there for a really strong industry and a really strong employer.
Right. Well, it's time now for everybody here to have a chance to ask some questions. If you are watching online, you can submit your questions as well. Susie, I think you're going to flag them up. But this is the opportunity now to open it up to the floor. If anybody's got any questions on anything that we've already touched, or if there is something else that you want to ask anybody here on the panel, maybe it's based on your own experience, then now is your opportunity to do so. But just wait for the microphone, introduce yourself, and just speak into the microphone, otherwise the people online will not be able to hear you. If there isn't any questions, then I will go back to IP. Do we have one? There we go.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm Natalia Łukaszewicz from Sensis. It's an IoT innovation center based in Glasgow. I wanted to ask you about, well, how do you feel about other countries and bike business in other countries with highly developed bike infrastructure? I mean, like Denmark, Germany, whether your businesses would run differently, and what are differences and what are the obstacles? Maybe they have also obstacles, I can imagine, even in Copenhagen with millions of bikes. Yeah, just to, your insights, your observation on this. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've been on a couple of panels recently, and this was a big topic. And I use a saying quite regularly: the best time to plant a tree is 300 years ago. The next best time is today. And if you think of the Dutch market, and certainly Copenhagen, in Holland, 50 years ago, they decided to start to build that infrastructure and talk about education. And that's the key thing here, is that we were talking about this on the way in today, that our government makes changes to cycle schemes and all of these processes, but don't talk to anyone about it. It just kind of just goes through government, goes as a paper, and is not really exploited. So, the challenge around the bicycle side of things is education and making that infrastructure changes. You can't tell me you can't take a city like Glasgow, Edinburgh, or London and put bike lanes everywhere. Make every other street a bike road only. Eventually communities will adapt to it. So we have to be aggressive in many ways to actually make this mobility change at this time. The beauty of what we've got, though, is that the digital piece that goes towards that is actually what will fuel it, because it drives data. Every bike out there that is digitally based, an e-bike, you can get data from of usage by the end consumer. So that's really, we're in a kind of whirlwind of change that needs to happen, but it needs to be kind of a bit of an aggressive change, really, to get it to move.
One other answer, and we'll move on there.
I would say, there's a lot of programs in Scotland, anyway, where we're working a lot with kids. A lot of it's in the reuse sector, but I think, like you said about planting trees, I think we can try to push people to use bikes, get out of the cars, create infrastructure and all that. But essentially, I don't think that's going to change it massively. We need to work with youth and changing their mindset in the bike is an option for mobility, and get involved at that stage. In 5 or 10 years, the change will be there. We just have to be ready for it. So I don't think trying to force people into doing something is actually the right way. You can't force feed people, they're resistant if you do. So I think we've got to work with kids. We've got to take what's working and actually change the mindset overall, rather than trying to just push it on people.
Got another question? There we go.
Hiya. So my name is Mark, and my background is actually in city planning. And I'd say, when you say, there's so much money going into the consultation just now. So I'd say anybody in this room that's passionate about getting more people on bikes, make an effort to go to the consultations and interact with the city councils. I guess I had a question for Alex, and it was centered around that idea as transport as mobility. And I wondered, sorry, I don't know enough about your business, but if you've got into the kind of commuter wear side as well, because I see that as I don't know, if we're going towards like cycling as a form of transport, I don't know, I hate going to work like all lycra'd up, and I just wish there was something nice looking or half decent that I could jump off my bike and go into the office, but cheers.
So our product is perfect for commuting, absolutely perfect. I didn't go into it when I was speaking earlier, but I talked about the versatility of the product. So you can absolutely get dressed in Findra in the morning, commute to work, and you don't have to worry about smelling, being sweaty, or you don't have to change. You can literally go into a meeting, you can get on with your day wearing the same clothes, and that's part of the approach and the ethos to how we think about the product and think about how we design it. It's that versatility that makes life easier and fuss-free for the consumer, the customer, but also from a sustainability point of view, it's about reducing your wardrobe, it's about having, you know, a few pieces of clothing that are able to work with most of your life, so you're not having to change, you're not having to have your lycra set for riding to work and then have to, you know, find somewhere to have a shower and get changed. So, yeah, our stuff is incredibly versatile and can be used for commuting, yeah.
Does anybody else want to have a pop at that, or do we have any questions coming from online? Oh, we've got a question here as well. Can we?
Hi, yes, I'm Tim Sommers, and my background is sort of high-tech, a bit of consulting and semiconductors. So a question, I think, aimed at probably David and Ian. I'm just wondering whether anybody's approached you looking at sort of hydrogen-powered bikes. You could imagine a frame, custom frame to hold the hydrogen, etc., fuel cells, your great electric motor in whatever form it is. I mean, hydrogen's a bit on an anti-hype cycle, I think, as far as automotive is concerned because of manufacturing it. But I keep reading articles about white hydrogen, the fact that there are huge deposits, apparently, about 3 kilometers down in the Earth's crust that people are speculating could last us hundreds of years to power the industry, power the world, etc. We could get hold of it. So maybe there is a future in hydrogen, and I'm just wondering whether anybody has approached you to look at that.
The simple answer is no. Nobody has approached us, but one of our board members over there has highlighted something fairly recently where there has been developments in people using hydrogen for smaller batteries like that, and it's something we would like to explore. But I think you're spot on. I think hydrogen probably has a much worse reputation than, you know, it could have. You know, we don't have enough lithium to keep fueling what we're going to do, particularly if we keep building cars. So it might be another option, but we haven't explored it very much at this point.
I think the same as sort of on the semiconductor side of things. You know, it's cost prohibitive in the bicycle industry at this stage, and I've had nobody approach me from a hydrogen cell perspective. I mean, it's just, again, making it small enough to be, you know, to make it still look like a bicycle. But we'd be definitely open to it. I mean, as an innovation company, we wouldn't say no to it, because the lithium-ion side of things is the problem with the bicycle industry right now, is we're tied to one battery solution.
I saw another hand shoot up just there as well.
Hello, my name is Peter, and I'm just here for myself and to learn a bit more about the Scottish industry. So, David, I think you were talking about kind of creating a directory of manufacturers in the UK. And I was wondering, how did you go about this?
I didn't really. It's Moira Forsyth's to blame for that one. So, yeah, Scottish Enterprise have basically brought about 30 to 40 CEOs together around the Scotland manufacturing base, and we've sort of looked at what is it we need to be doing with the new innovation centre that's coming together over in Leith. And, you know, this gives us an opportunity to have this central hub for innovation and design, but it's also then at the same time looking at what are the capabilities in Scotland. So, yeah, it's a work in progress at this stage. But certainly anyone from Scottish Enterprise or Moira who's here today can certainly enlighten you a little bit more on that and encourage a one-to-one with her.
I think Moira's to blame for a lot of stuff up here.
We've got one more question at the front here, and I think, Stephen, how are we doing time-wise? Fine. Okay, perfect, thank you.
My name's Kevin Maynor for Cycling Industries Europe, familiar with some of the panel, but I'm going to bring in the B word. I mean, this is very inspirational. We see very little of this in Europe at national levels. So to think that this energy is in Scotland is one of the many reasons I work with Moira and colleagues, because we think you've got kind of something to offer. But equally, when I talk to British-based companies, some have virtually given up on a 350 million people market that does a lot more cycling in the UK. And others are desperately keen to break in and are looking to cross. For you, I mean, it's a simple question. It is the biggest bicycle market in the world. What do we need to do to go beyond the UK for your companies?
Certainly from our side of things, the access is there to the brands. We're engaged with those brands. It's just a question of making those hoops easier to get through when we're exporting product. Simple as that. You know, the horrible B word has been a challenge for quite some time, and we're not even into that shipping internationally at this stage, but we are aware of the challenges and problems. I mean, it's not just into Europe. Shipping into the US now has become a problem because of Brexit. So, yeah, we would take all the help that we can get to make sure that we're immersing ourselves into the European brands. The beauty is, though, the European brands are looking at us and saying, actually, we need to do this closer to home. So FreeFlow's benefits there is that, you know, the whole Asian market side of things, people are realizing that it is a different way to do things, and they're starting to look on their own doorsteps, and, you know, the doorstep is only a hop over the water. So, yeah, we're starting to rattle the right cages, which is good, but any help is always greatly appreciated.
I benefited from the B word. So with because of B, I became the UK maker for a brand that, while I was running a cargo bike library, I was shipping in from Europe, which actually I really didn't need to do. So we are localized, so we have microfactories in Copenhagen, Hamburg, Barcelona, Edinburgh, and one in the States. So as I said, we just share data, and past that, I've been able to start to thrive. I'm only 18 months old, so hence start to thrive here, because it is now purely a closed market. So we've got to take advantage. It's happened. We've got to deal, and this, you know, the innovation that's coming between the room and here is really going to show what is bringing back that great manufacturing that well, I'm Canadian, but Scottish-based, so Scottish ancestry that was here, like, and that's why I say something like Sturmey Archer. It was brilliant until it left.
I would kind of echo what MJ just said. There's definite benefits to it, as in people are far more conscious of manufacturing close to the customer base, and I guess how we think about our process is modularly. We could move, we could set up there. If we had the right connections here, we would set up beside them. If we talk about additive manufacturing, the actual setup costs are pretty low, the space is pretty low. So it's more a case of connecting with them and setting up close to it. I mean, sustainability is really, really important to us, and I guess being as close to that customer is what's important in terms of shipping, reducing all that, and how you build that process. So I think, as negative as it has been for some people, that's more people who are super stuck in their ways and super used to doing business the old way. I think if you're innovative, there's benefits to be had.
So we didn't benefit from the B word, and we're definitely not stuck in our ways. So it wasn't that. No, that's all right, Ian. I know you weren't referring to us, but we had seen really good growth in Europe from e-commerce sales. And it was growing really nicely, and it literally just stopped overnight. So it really had a detrimental effect on our business. And the type of products that we've got, I know, are probably pretty ideal for Europe and Scandinavian countries because of lifestyle. Cycling is part of their lifestyle. So for us, it's kind of reintroducing that into our kind of plan in the next few years. Looking at whether that is attending a trade show and going down the wholesale route, or working with a distributor. But it's something that we are planning to do in the next few years, is to look at how we can start to build that growth up again, or get into these markets.
I saw there's a gentleman just over there whose hand has shot up a couple of times now. So I think we're going to have to make this the last. Perfect.
I'm Chris Smith, City of Glasgow College, and we have probably got faculties that are feeding all of your different sectors in various ways at different scales. Could you just say something about the throughput of the skills that you're looking for, or you think your industry or your company might need, say, over the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, is it Are you flush with volunteers with the right skills, or is it a bit of a battle? And are we, the college sector, producing the right sort of output? And if not, how can we get closer to you to understand, where your individual sectors might go over that 5 to 10 year period?
I mean, for us on a design electronic side of things, it's certainly the team expansion we got in our business plan is in the next 18 months to add 39 new people to our staff roster. And that's all the way through from assembly operators building the systems on the bench, right the way through to mechanical design supports, electrical software support side of things. So yeah, everything the colleges are doing, we turn to that. We actually have some of our team members have come directly from that sort of faculty. So yeah, we're always on the look.
I think this is a broader question for me. I'm a solo maker. I'd like to stay a solo maker. However, I like to saying that it's about driving other small businesses and looking and like I know Kevin Main can attest to this. We are creating an ecosystem with no workers, specifically in psychologistics. We don't have any mechanics. We don't have mechanics that sit at a professional level. We will be losing a lot of our mechanical work to the car industry. So especially at the college level, I want to know, do you like to work with your hands? Not a very specific skill set of product design or electronics about what that person can bring to something. And I think especially in that college environment, because the majority of the people are there because they want to work with their hands. Innovationally from like the mobile plumber who's using a cargo bike to the newly found like logistics drivers or logistics mechanics and product design. Like it's, the world's your onion,
I would say that's a hugely hot topic in the industry right now. As we create an industry and as it grows, we're not displacing jobs like a lot of other industries that a new startup might just take someone from another one. We're creating an industry that's grown, and Kevin can probably give you incredible figures on how many people are employed in Europe. It is dwarfed by the number here, but as this grows, we do not have the skill sets, and not only do we not have the skill sets, we don't have the language to attract people, and we don't have career progression. So I would say it's really important for people like you to speak to people like Alex from the BA on how we do that. As an industry, we're cyclists. We target cyclists. We advertise to cyclists. We don't know how to attract people outside of that. And as it goes to mobility, we really need to. So I would say that is probably one of the most detrimental things to the growth of our industry is not having the skill sets.
Specifically to my business, we're a digital first business, so a lot of the challenges we find are around building e-commerce people with digital experience, data, digital marketing skills. There's a real lack of that in Scotland actually, and not enough available with the knowledge and experience that we need to be able to really grow an e-commerce business. And I think that's really kind of a real future sort of career choice. There's so much opportunity there, and we really need to make sure that we actively encourage more people to get involved in that industry. And obviously, with the latest news on Codes plans closing down, so that's been pretty bad for Scotland and pretty detrimental, and hopefully there's going to be some sort of resolution with that, because we were leading the way in terms of digital skills and encouraging that, and it would be really sad to see us sort of fall behind.
Do you find that even though they're like a digital-based business, do you find less people applying for the jobs because it's a cycling-based business? Like, does that come into it, or do you just get people who are digital-based?
So we're generally outdoors, so we go beyond just cycling. But the challenge is that we need, so if we're looking at people that are going to be helping us with our social media, communicating with our followers, our customer base,
We want people that can speak authentically about the industry, about what we do, about the outdoors, about cycling. So that can be quite challenging because there can be people that apply for the role who have experience of doing social media, for example, but might not be able to get into the space that we're in terms of that authentic conversation and understanding the industry. So it's quite niche in terms of finding those two things together, but not impossible. It's more challenging being based in Scotland and even more challenging being based in the Scottish borders. So, fortunately COVID's allowed everyone to understand and learn how to work from home so we can adapt.
Right, well, this is the quick roundup. I'm very conscious of the time, and we've got one more speaker yet to go. There's a couple of things that I'm hoping you're all going to be able to take away from this. First of all, my love of containers. They are they're an incredible innovation. They've changed our world for the better, but they've presented challenges as well. But joking aside, our four panelists have shown you that the innovation is happening in the area, that progress may be a little bit slower than we possibly want it always to be. The route may be bumpier, but there are huge opportunities that are being presented by the change in circumstances, by the change in the industry, and by a change in recognized audience as well. And that the things that are true today or that were true yesterday may not be true tomorrow. So there is an opportunity to keep going back and revisiting things to see if they have moved quick enough to help you develop the products that you want to bring to market. There is a lot of help out there already, and everybody keeps pointing towards Moira. And there's expertise there to help you as you innovate, bring new products, start new companies. Make use of maybe less traditional spaces, shared spaces, and the collaboration and the support that they offer. And of course, you've got four people who are, they may cringe a little bit, but are trailblazing in their own particular areas and who are prepared to stand up and talk and share their experiences, and most importantly, to collaborate. And through that collaboration, innovation is accelerated and broadened. So thank you everybody here for participating, for giving us your questions. Thank you very much to the panelists for bringing your story here and sharing your experience as well. And a round of applause for the panelists. Thank you. We are going to stay on stage, so you can carry on gazing at us for a few more moments. But my last role is to introduce Ed Shute. He is the lead for the mountain bike program for the South of Scotland Enterprise. And he has he's been asked to introduce the Mountain Bike Innovation Centre, which builds upon these collaborative hubs and bringing people together. So, Ed, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I think, this hopefully finishes the session quite well. It's kind of just introducing what the public sector, I guess, is doing to invest to support innovation and also the infrastructure that it needs. So some of you guys, this will be an update. You'd have heard about the Innovation Centre before that we're talking about. And for others, I'm trying to very quickly introduce what it is. So, first of all, can't see that very well. The first one is kind of the objective. So basically, the Mountain Bike Innovation Centre is the result of a lot of hard work, and we've been talking about Moira and SE's role in this, so there's been a lot of work being done to grow mountain biking. One of the reasons it is mountain biking, is the focus, is because Scotland's very good at it. We've got a trail network, we've got the countryside, we've got open access. It's a great place to mountain bike, but also it's a very innovative sector, and I think the number of innovation clinics that have been run shows all these great ideas that come, and a lot of them are mountain bike focused. So traditionally that's kind of been the background for where this project came from. It's been a long time in the creation and kind of getting that funding application in all those years ago. It feels like now, but it was a long time ago as well. We kind of went into one of the regional city growth deals, Borderlands deal, and managed to secure £90 million of funding from the UK government through that way back in 2019, and since then we've been working with both the Scottish Government and UK Government to kind of bring this all together and get our kind of final final business case approved. I work for South Scotland Enterprise, who are now the project lead, who weren't even in existence when we first put this project together. So it kind of shows the length of time it's taken, but also that fight to try and get some public sector and government support for mountain biking, for cycling, for the sector is a challenge. And I think we continue to see that as there's opportunities around transport, it's just not getting bought into. And I think very much my role in this is shouting about cycling and trying to get that support and across the SC as well, and the role they're doing. We're trying to get that support for you guys, we're trying to get that funding, we're trying to get the infrastructure, and this is very much around the infrastructure. So this is based in the Scottish Borders, in Innerleithen, the heart of mountain biking. Pretty confident to say it's the UK's leading mountain bike destination. We've got the UCI World Championships cross-country marathon there this week. We're really excited about. We fought hard to get that, all part of the bigger picture of kind of making this that destination to go to. At the heart of it will be Carely Mill, an old textiles mill in the town of Innerleithen, which is a derelict site, a sign of kind of the declining industry. But also in the hills, we see so many cyclists and mountain bikers that's the sign of the future industry. And it's a really nice story of bringing that building back into life. And that's been at the core of this project. So what is the Mountain Bike Innovation Centre? The objectives of it are to support development of a mountain bike focused cycling industry cluster. So very much working on, I think MJ's examples of getting people together, getting people in a hub, getting it into this sort of shared space and getting those ideas. And it was really good to see in the kind of survey question, the hub, I think it was second on the, but it was up there. And there's a need and a demand for that, which is great to see. Supporting and growing and driving sustainable innovation, so the centre will very much focus on that. And the construction of the building, we wanted to reflect this, which is using a net zero, operational net zero approach, so looking at really clever ways of bringing that building into life, but I'm also making sure its lifetime carbon cost can be as low as possible by using quite innovative techniques in it as well. So that in turn will develop this world-class destination, so we'll have access into mountain bike riding, but also learning, so working with colleges across Scotland, not only the local ones that are kind of already involved in the project, we're open to kind of conversations across Scotland. It's very much a national project to get that expertise in learning and getting this as the hub and the go-to place for that. Finally, delivering export growth and attracting inward investment is always kind of one of those priorities for the sector and for the support for the sector as well. So yeah, what's it going to look like? We're excited that planning consent's in place. Morrison's are the tier one contractor. They have ownership of the site. They're working on the site at the moment, which is a great step forward for us. It's been a long journey, but actually getting that final approval for the plans, we know it's going to look like this, which is really exciting. We're using the building, bringing it back to life in a really sympathetic way, creating new lab spaces on the right as you come in, creating kind of showers, bike storage, a real practical space for people to go ride their bikes on the trails, come back to the centre so you can test, you can ride your bike for lifestyle, you want to go out at lunchtime as well and be based in the centre. So it's very much embracing the trails that surround the town. Inside, we've got event space, studio space, office space, a really nice kind of area for a cafe, always at the heart of these innovation collaborative spaces as well. And there's kind of a full plan there of the centre. I'm going to be through the exhibition space, so I'm very open to questions and conversations. So part of this kind of quick 5 minutes, I'll probably use 5 minutes, but very quick 5 minutes is to kind of introduce it and happy to have conversations with it. The other side of the project is what we're calling a bike park with a trail lab. The bike park is, as it sounds, trying to get a commercial partner on board. We have at South Scotland Enterprise selected our preferred delivery partner for that. There's kind of confidential process going on at the moment to finalise what that will look like, but we're really excited to have a partner selected and just working through the kind of technicalities of getting them on board and getting that in the public domain. So that's, again, a really nice step forward. Part of this is the Trail Lab. Really kind of exciting concept, this, and it's around using the trails as a living lab, a living test lab, using a private 5G network to collect huge amounts of data, huge amounts of opportunities across a whole breadth of different areas. So using instrumented test track to collect things from biodiversity, how they're affected by the trails, right through to how the riders kind of reacting to clothing, to the trail itself, so you get performance data as well. So really exciting concept. We're developing it all the time with partners, had a lot of conversations. Hopefully, I think a few of you guys in the room as well, we've been kind of tapping into, but again, happy to discuss more around that. But yeah, I think, that's a quick overview of what we're intended to do, and I think it's quite a nice, hopefully, summary of these guys doing the innovation and what we're trying to do in the public sector to kind of support that in the future.
Thank you. So, I'm not going to talk for very long. Just before we have the exhibition upstairs, which is kind of back, if we follow our exhibitors back up to the Clyde Suite, join us for beer and wine and bites and water. So it's just kind of back up the ramp, but we've got a quick poll, if you don't mind, it'll take 1 second. If you just click on to that would be great. If you could just give today's event a rating. And while you're doing that, I just want to thank Alex so much for chairing so expertly today, to Alex, MJ, David, Ian and Ed, to you for joining us, and for our virtual friends, wherever you are in the ether. Thanks to Laura Bell, wherever you are. Where are you, Laura? Where have you gone? Oh, there she is. Laura and Stephen Downey in my team for pulling today together, as well as the AVIT team from the Science Centre and the events team, and also to the Events Hub team who've supported the delivery of the exhibition today. And thank you to the exhibitors as well, who we're about to meet. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for attending and enjoy the after party and expo. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.